Hi, Alan here. I traveled from North Texas up to Dodge City and then west from Dodge City into Colorado. I decided to take a side tour into Dodge City because I'd been there once before, but I really wanted to gain a sense of what went on in Dodge City. And after spending a couple days in town, I think I got a piece together. So if you want a little piece of history here, you already saw some video of the unexpected snowfall on April 20th in Dodge City, of some of the travel through the southern plains, leaving from North Texas and getting in through Oklahoma and Kansas. And you'll see a little bit heading out into Colorado in a minute. But let me do this side tour with you of Dodge City. By the way, Alan here, RVAcrossAmerica.net. This post is going to be at rvacrossamerica.net/Dodge City. Kind of makes sense. So bear with me. I'm kind of checking my notes on this. The most wicked town in the Old West. That's what Dodge City was known as. And what you're going to find here is the entire history of Dodge City and everything we know about it was really about a 13-year period. It started in 1865. That's not the year that I'm using as the start year, but I need to mention 1865 because that was the founding of Fort Dodge. You know, you may recall that was the end of the Civil War, the war between the states, and there were a lot of wagon trains starting to head west, and the U.S. Military decided there needed to be a fort placed in southern Kansas to protect wagon trains that were headed on the Santa Fe Trail towards Santa Fe, New Mexico, from the Indians at that time. By 1872, and this is really the beginning of Dodge City, George Hoover opened up the first saloon in Dodge City, as he described it, 1 foot beyond 5 miles from Fort Dodge. Now, why was that? Fort Dodge became quite a spectacle at times, and the commander at Fort Dodge decided that it was largely because of alcohol, so he outlawed alcohol. And according to U.S. law, at least at that time, there couldn't be a saloon within 5 miles of a United States fort. So George Hoover opened up a saloon 5 miles and 1 foot away from the fort. And that became Dodge City. So 1872 really marks the beginning of Dodge City, but it wasn't just a place for the soldiers to go and get drunk. At that time, it was the beginning of Dodge City because of the railroad coming in, because of the buffalo kills that were happening. It became a center for people to do commerce, and that's what really got things cooking in 1872. We were introduced to Dodge City via Matt Dillon, Gunsmoke, and other westerns, and players such as Bat Masterson and his brothers, Wyatt Earp and his brothers, Big Nose Kate and others, and the town became in 1872 destined for history. And like I mentioned, in September, the railroad arrived, and that's when everything was off and running. And I would say it was a brief, colorful, and violent history. The Boot Hill Cemetery was created in 1872. It only lasted for 6 years. It was really an indigent cemetery. It was a place that people got buried if they didn't have the money to get buried at Fort Dodge or someplace more respectable than Boot Hill. It was usually somebody who drew a little bit too slowly when they were in a gunfight, and gunfights were rather quite common in that early period of that brief period of Dodge City's history. By 1876, 4 years later, just 4 years later, it was the end of buffalo hunting, and that was pretty much because they all got killed off. There were fellows out there that bragged they could kill thousands in a day, but that also began the cattle drives on the Santa Fe Trail. So Dodge City was doing just fine, even though the buffalo trade came to an unceremonious end. Also in 1876, the cowboys were out of control with these cattle drives, and Wyatt Earp was invited and then hired into this town of 1,200 with 19 saloons. So Wyatt Earp steps in and begins to clean things up. I also learned that the origin of the term red light district is attributable to Dodge City. And that's when the train masters took their red caboose lanterns with them when they visited the town's brothels. And yes, there were several brothels. South of the tracks were designated the lawless zone. That's one of the things that Earp did. He cleaned up Front Street, which is where all the commerce was and all the saloons and such, and made it almost a gun-free zone. But then on the other side, literally about a block and a half away of the tracks, south of the tracks, was designated the lawless zone, and he figured that would allow mayhem to go on south of the tracks, but commerce could go on the north side of the tracks on Front Street. Front Street, of course, was built up in 1872 when the town first got started. By 1878, even Doc Holliday was in the mix in Dodge City. Wyatt Earp and Doc Holliday had previously met out of state. I believe it was in Texas or New Mexico. But Doc Holliday arrived and was active in the gambling. In 1880, the railroad reached Santa Fe. And that was the beginning of the end for Dodge City because there was no more cattle drives. There was no need for Fort Dodge. It closed in 1882 because the railroad could go straight through and there was nobody that they had to protect. Now, interestingly, in 1881, Kansas went dry. Kansas decided to go no alcohol. But the characters in Dodge City still had a solution, and that kept the saloons alive and it kept the fire going, if you will. They turned all the saloons into pharmacies. And you would go in and there was a doctor right there at the door that would greet you and give you your prescription for alcohol. And you could go up to the bar and order your alcohol from your prescription. Well, that lasted until 1885 when Kansas realized what was going on. And the state of Kansas tightened the law, so it really had to be enforced. So that was the end of the prescription writing. Also in 1885, there were one or two fires on Front Street and in town causing major damage. And as if that wasn't enough, there was a major blizzard in the winter of 85-86. And that was the end of Dodge City as the legendary Western gunfighting town. So really what it comes down to is 1872 to 1885 is all there was. That 13-year period, that was Dodge City. And again, you can find more detail on this and more background on my travels at rvcrossamerica.net/Dodge City. There is a museum in Dodge City which has built a recreation of Front Street, because Front Street was completely gone. I mean, the Front Street that you see today in Dodge City is historic, but it is post 1885. It's more early 20th century. The museum has a complete recreation of Front Street, along with some other buildings and along with a lot of artifacts. And I think, frankly, it's very well done. It's not an inexpensive visit. It's going to run you about $15 a person. But if you're like me and if you're kind of a fan of the Old West, I spent 3 or 4 hours there, and it has the actual site of the original Boot Hill Cemetery right there. You'll see some video of that. I think I got that just before or just after what I'm doing right now. And they do say that they may not have gotten all the bodies out of there when they relocated that cemetery after 1878. So there might still be a few people buried right inside the museum. Something else. But it was quite a time in our nation's history, quite colorful, and I thought it was pretty interesting. And I'm just going to turn the video back over to a little bit more driving footage. I'll tell you that right now I'm making this on a rainy day up in Guernsey, Wyoming. In between Dodge City and Wyoming, I drove through Colorado, picked up a trike. So I'll be sharing some news with you about that. I think it's a hoot. Um, and I'll be out riding that starting tomorrow when the sun comes back out. We've had a couple days in a row of kind of light to moderate rain pretty continuously, but the area needs it. Eastern Wyoming and the western Great Plains is not known for having an abundance of moisture, and this certainly helped. Anyway, Alan here, rvacrossamerica.net, again, / Dodge City. And we'll talk to you soon. Enjoy the remainder of the footage that I have here. And I don't know, stay tuned and sign up for my newsletter so you can get more information as it comes available. Thank you.